We'll be treating forms and elements of poetry. That's our topic because we've already established what poetry was last week, and we tried to differentiate between traditional poetry and the modern poetry. We also talked about oral and written forms of poetry. So, just to refreshen our minds, poetry is the way one expresses his emotions and ideas. You do this through rhythm and style. So how poetry, we know all genres of literature are just about expressing your thoughts, expressing your feelings, but they usually come in different styles. So poetry now, you express your thoughts, you express your feelings through a rhythmic pattern or a style. That's what differentiates poetry from prose, from drama. You do this with rhythm, you do this expression with rhythm, and you do it with a different style. So that's the difference when it comes to poetry. So the forms of poetry, it's like it's a structural style to present poetic expressions. So when we talk about the forms of poetry, we're just talking about how the pattern in which these poems, these literary forms are written. So it just wanting us to know the different patterns or the different styles in which a poet can choose to write or to express himself. All right. So now we have the types or forms of poetry. We have lyric. We I don't know if you've come across that word lyric. So it's just mainly about expressing your feelings, expressing your emotions or your thoughts. You understand? So you just something that you can just write it down, expressing how you feel. Maybe, some people can just decide to write about the weather, write about something, but you're expressing your own feelings, how you actually feel. This we put it often in first person. That you're not trying to say how the other person is feeling, you're just trying to say how you are feeling about a particular thing. Now we have this a way like this a formal way of praising a person, like you praise a person, you praise places, ideas, or thing. It's just normally when you hear this, when you come across this word, the thing that comes into your mind is just praise, a formal way of praising a person. All right. Now we have sonnet. We talked about sonnet last week, and sonnet is a 14-line poem which is written in iambic pentameter, following specific rhythm and specific rhyme scheme. So I tried to establish what rhyme scheme was with the example I gave last week, and every sonnet follows the rhyme scheme of A B C D C D E F G G. So it has two couplets and three quatrains. So that's the rhyme scheme it follows that differentiates it from other types of poetry. It must follow this specific rhyme scheme. All right. And then another type of poetry now is free verse. So when you hear the word free verse, it's trying to tell you that it's not following any particular pattern, it's not following any particular structure. All right. You can just come up with something, you just express your though in rhythm, it must have a rhythm, but it's not following any specific one per se. But it's just that as long as it's a poem, it must have a rhythm. You understand? But it doesn't have rules to it. That's why it's called free verse. Now, elements of poetry. Um, these are like specifically what makes up poetry. Now we have imagery, definitely. So when a person comes into the place of expressing his feelings or his thoughts or an idea, there's already something he's imagining. So you're using your vivid imagination, you're using it vividly to describe something through your own language. You are creating your own mental pictures of all these things which you are actually expressing. it, you're expressing it through your writing, through the poem. All right. So imagery, is the use of vivid and descriptive language to create mental images. You use vivid and descriptive language to create a mental image. So when let's say you're talking about how beautiful, did someone call my attention? Or I can go on. I thought I heard someone call me. So, well, let's just imagine someone is writing about a beautiful flower now. So whatever you're writing, you are trying to make sure that you are describing it in such a way that whosoever that is reading or whosoever that is listening to you can also have a mental picture of the thing you are describing. That's why I say the use of vivid and descriptive language. All right. You use vivid words to describe um whatsoever you're talking about. So now the tone, which is very important. Now, this tone now is the poet's attitude towards the subject. So now, if he's writing about a flower per se, so it might be that um he might be um happy about this flower that he saw, or he might be angry. So how you used to know the way to know the to know the tone is is revealed through the word choice and his style. You understand? So to know his attitude towards whatever he's describing, you will know this through his choice of words and how he says it. You understand? He might just say how beautiful this is. I came across this, and you will know that this writer is actually, or this poet is actually happy about this thing. This thing made him feel so good. So his attitude towards it is a positive one. You know this through his choice of words. Okay. And now diction. Diction is the poet's choice of word. All right. And it affects the poem's tone and meaning. So he might choose to make it a less more complex, or he might that's making it simple, or he might try to use very complex words or complex choice of words. And this actually affects the tone and meaning of his poem. All right. So even in the other genres of literature, we talked about this diction. So diction actually makes the reader to have more meaning, like to gain proper understanding of whatsoever the poet is trying to say. You get. We have rhythm as part of the elements of poetry. So rhythm, I don't know if people can still see my slide. You are seeing my slide or you're not seeing it. Just um you can just bring my attention to it. So rhythm now is the beat and the pace of a poem. You understand? How words actually um how they follow each other, if I put it that way. So created by a pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables. So the beat and the pace of a poem is actually created by stressed and unstressed syllables in a particular line or standard of a poem. Now the mood. This is the overall feeling or atmosphere that the poem creates for the reader. So with imagery that is the kind of imagination the poet creates through his language, his language also called diction, the reader now can get a glimpse of the poet's feelings. So I might be reading about something so doting that the poet is describing, and me too, I will get into that mood. You understand? Because the writer has been able to create it. It's an overall feeling or atmosphere that the poem creates for the reader. Again. So the whole summary of this is that poetry comes in various forms. It comes in various forms: lyric, it comes in ode, it comes in sonnet, it comes in different forms, and each has its own characteristics. Just the way I told you that a sonnet must, it's a must, it must be a 14-line poem. Anything that is above, like above or less, is not a sonnet anymore. And an ode definitely must be something that is a praise. You're using it to a form of writing that is to give praises to a particular person or a particular thing. You get? And we have free verse. So all of these forms of poetry, they have their own characteristics, they have their own makeup. And also key elements of poetry include imagery, it includes the tone, diction, rhythm, and mood. These are the key elements of poetry. Like for you to actually establish that yes, this actually a poem, it had must have all these characteristics, elements in the sense that it must have all these characteristics that it must be able to evoke in the imagination of the reader the tone of the writer, his diction, the rhythm, and the mood. Generally, like how the readers feel after reading the poem or whenever they are reading the poem. All right. So understanding this helps in analyzing and appreciate poem. So when you're able to understand all the forms and all the elements of poetry, you can be able to analyze it. You can be able to, when you analyze the poem, you can be able to know the theme. You can be able to get the whole idea behind um the poem. You understand? And you'll be able to appreciate it better. So when you are able to understand the writer's language, you know why he actually decided to write on this type of things. You know why he chose to write this way. Chose to pick up this style. Okay. So this topic is not really broad like that. I don't know if people there's any question for me so far. If there's any question, if anybody has any question, you can ask your question right now. I don't know if people followed from the beginning of the class. We did not really have much to talk about. We just talk about the forms and the elements of poetry. And I told you poetry has the form of lyric. Lyric is a way of expressing your feelings. You write down your feelings, you write down your thoughts or an idea. We have ode. Ode is a formal way of giving praises to things, to giving praises to people. We have free verse. Free verse is a form of writing that does not follow any formal structure. That is, it doesn't follow any formal pattern. You can write it, but definitely it must have rhyme. Like a poem is not complete without rhyme. You understand? But free verse is something that doesn't follow rules. That's why the name there is the free verse. And we have elements of poetry, which are imagery, definitely, diction, the mood, and rhythm. So if they are not, we don't have any question. Any question for me because we actually have covered what we have for tonight. We have some questions here. I don't know if we're being responsive now. Would have just answered these questions, but it seems I don't know why we're not responding. Any question? Is there any place you need clarity? I'm not getting any feedback. So is that trying to tell me that we are clear on the topic? Okay. So if there's none, I guess we've come to the end of the class. I see you all next week. Thank you. Good night.